Ni una menos, ni una menos, ni una menos, ni una menos, ni una menos.
Are we ready to start, Loretta? You think? Yeah, good. Okay, so well, firstly, thanks everyone for joining us tonight for the opening of Sheroes-Revoluciones 2.0. My name is Visila and I'm one of the directors at Lon-art Creative, which is the organization behind Sheroes. And before we start, I'm just going to go through the plan for tonight so that we all know. I will first introduce the project, and then I will be followed by two special guests that we have tonight, that they will talk about violence against women and girls from their own professional experience. And then we will dive into the exhibition, and we're very lucky because most of the artists are with us tonight, so they will be the ones sharing their stories, sharing their artwork, which is always an amazing treat. Please remember to stay on mute, but also you can use the chat as much as you want, so you can share any thoughts, any comments, share your support with the artists, and if we have time at the end, which I doubt because we have lots to go through, we might have time for questions. And lastly, also, the call is being recorded, so if you have any issues with it, please just turn your camera off and then you won't be it. Okay, so Sheroes-Revoluciones. Sheroes-Revoluciones is a project designed to draw attention to violence against women and girls in the broadest sense, so from the most visible and obvious to the most invisible. And it all started in November 2019 when we launched the first Sheroes-Revoluciones exhibition at VAWG, and then we had 30 artists from all over the world. We had workshops, performances, and also afterwards we had an 8-week trauma-informed resiliency program for SOLAS staff members and service users. And I am 100% sure that everyone who came, like from the artists, the team and the attendees, that everybody will agree that it was something extremely special. And not only because of the art, like the content that we exhibited, but also because of the way that everybody interacted with the artworks and with the artists, and all the amazing conversations and very moving and very personal and very intimate conversations that arose from those interactions. And for us as an organization, this certainly is the embodiment of what we aim. Our goal is to use the art to start uncomfortable conversations about issues that we believe really matter. We are art activists, as we say, and we strongly believe in the power of art to engage audiences and to raise awareness. And the way we do it is we offer a platform so that we bring together artists and activists and change makers, and in this case, experts in violence against women and girls, so that we have like a very holistic approach and we can push for like real changes in society. The inspiration behind Sheroes-Revoluciones comes from all the social movements, all the revolutions, all the revoluciones that have been challenging our social frameworks in recent years. And these revoluciones have gathered people like in the thousands, and women in particular, to protest against the normalization of rape, sexual abuse, harassment, reproductive rights, or gender inequality. And then we have, for instance, Marea Verde in Argentina, or Me Too, or Ni Una Menos in Mexico, the fight for legal right, like abortion rights, in Ireland, and then what is happening now in Poland. And what we've seen is that these revoluciones have not only started political debates and court cases, in some cases, but also they have started a global outcry like we haven't seen before. And so for us, as our sisters have been saying, time's up, and we are fully committed as an organization to do as much as we can. So that's why we are here today. So the exhibition we're about to open, just to put you also a bit in context, was going to take place last year, a year ago now, at VAWG, but because of COVID, we decided to postpone it. And then earlier this year, we decided to go ahead and do it online because we saw that the situation when it comes to violence against women has only gotten worse because of the pandemic. And then just to share some statistics with you in order to support all this that I am saying, 91% of women that were experiencing domestic abuse before March 2020 said that the COVID-19 pandemic had negatively impacted their situation in at least one way. This is a report from Women's Aid. And then Refuge, the charity, also reported a 700% increase in calls to its helpline in a single day. I mean, this is shocking and horrendous, we believe. And then on top of all of that, as we were preparing the exhibition, then Sarah Everard was killed, and which has resulted in women, and especially young women, taking the streets in London like I think we haven't seen before. And then also violence against women receiving unprecedented media coverage, which we really hope that we will bring the political changes that we all crave for. And we also, speaking about this, we need to remember that so many women disappear and it goes unnoticed, and especially when it comes to women of color. So having said all of this, I am sure that all of us here in the call tonight, we will agree that we have had enough, and that as a society, like, we can no longer turn a blind eye to the fact that 2 women a week are being killed. I mean, this is another pandemic. And if we don't stick together, if we don't keep speaking up, if we don't keep being allies and raising awareness, we're not going to be able to make a change. And tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to do this, and we're going to do it with, like, through the art. And we are super, super honored to have 15 actually amazing artists who are so brave that are willing to share their own experiences in order to give voice to so many women who either have lost it or have never had it. And before we start, I just want to thank you all, because we are extremely thankful, really. And before we continue, just a warning, because some of the content that we are going to share tonight is rather sensitive, so it can trigger past experiences or trauma. So the most important thing is that you stay safe. And so if you feel that you're uncomfortable, please leave, and you can come back if you wish to. And also we're sharing in the chat links and phone numbers. So if you are seeking for help, or you know anyone that might be seeking for help, you know that you have information there. We also have compiled charities and organizations on the website, so you know you can find support by the exhibition as well. And now, with no further ado, I will start introducing the 2 guest speakers of tonight. So first, we're gonna listen to Lara Snowdon. Lara is an advocate for the prevention of violence against women and girls. She works for the World Health Organization Collaborating Centre at Public Health Wales as Violence Prevention Programme Lead, and she also is a founding member of the Wales Violence Prevention Unit. She has spent the last 8 years training and working as a public health specialist, working for Public Health England and Public Health Wales, and has dedicated her career and her academic studies to understanding how violence can be prevented, with a focus on the primary prevention of violence against women and girls. And Lara has been an ambassador of the project since 2019, since we started. And so it's for us like a huge honor to have her with her tonight, and with us tonight, and to be able to listen to her. So Lara, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you. And what a privilege to be here and to be speaking as well. Just as you're speaking, I can feel kind of how powerful it is to be in a room of women and men, but talking about, you know, the issue of violence against women, and raising, as you say, these kind of uncomfortable questions. So, you know, what a privilege to be here, and thank you. So thanks for the introduction. My name's Lara. I'm a really proud ambassador of Sheroes, and really, really privileged to be here tonight and speaking to you all. In my day job, I'm a public health specialist, but I specialise in violence prevention, and I lead a programme of work at the World Health Organization Collaborating Centre around violence prevention, specifically looking at how we can prevent violence before it occurs. I'm not an expert in art at all, so I'm here to just enjoy this evening as you all are, and experience the exhibition with you all. However, I do feel I can say a little bit, I'm not going to talk for very long at all, but just about art and power and how that might relate to violence prevention. So if you looked in the invite this evening, it said that art is a powerful tool to raise awareness about violence against women and something which can empower us all. And I truly believe that. And I think we're definitely going to see that from the exhibition tonight. So I'm really excited to be here. However, in my day job, it's very much about science. So violence is an issue that really has typically been seen through a criminal justice lens and has been dealt with through the criminal justice system. It looks at people as individuals, as perpetrators, as offenders, and as victims. And actually, if you look at it through a public health lens, you're seeing it as a population health issue, and looks at the ways that we can prevent that as a societal issue at scale and how everybody has a role in preventing that. So my job on a day-to-day basis is things like, how do we quantify violence, like some of those statistics that Priscilla just discussed? How can we estimate risk factors, so things which encourage violence to happen? How could we predict it happening? How can we prevent violence? How can we empower communities to be more resilient to violence? And what interventions might work with different groups in order to do that? However, there's a really big part of my day job, which is about art, I think, and that is about advocacy. So the art of communication, of persuasion, and of creating change, and of having the platform to do that, which I think is what we're all here to do this evening. So I do think a lot about power and about art, and I want to pose this question to you all. If violence is ultimately an expression of power, what role does art have in preventing violence? So I think this exhibition really does just that, and that's why I'm such a proud supporter of this project. I think Sheroes really mobilises art to transform and to challenge and to disrupt the conversation, the dominant narrative that we've had for years and years and years. And I hope that we are at the start of something new, a new conversation, a new narrative. So whether that art is perhaps a representation of lived experience, which I'm sure we're going to see, or perhaps it provides a frame of reference that might help you to think differently. Maybe the art challenges the status quo, or maybe it just raises questions that we all need to kind of consider and think about. Just a bit of a personal anecdote. I'm from Devon. It's a lovely place, beautiful to live here. But it's quite famous for a sculpture by Damien Hirst called Verity, or it's known locally by its name Verity. And it's basically, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a huge sculpture of a pregnant woman, and she's looking out to sea in Ilfracombe, and she's raising a sword. And just as a lay person, as I said, I'm not an expert at all, but looking at it as a woman, it just reminds me of the portrayal of women in art as, you know, his story, as history. And I think too often women are co-opted into that patriarchal project as mothers or mermaids, or perhaps as the motherland or maidens or virgins. And they're, yeah, as I said, co-opted into that male project rather than truly being representations of women's lived experience. So I think instead, art by women that represents women's experience, represents questions that women might ask, but crucially represents their experience of violence against women, will ask new questions, and it will disrupt, and it will provide an alternative frame of reference, alternative and transformative forms of power. So I just want to finish now with kind of sharing one of the most powerful things I've ever done in my career. So it was one of the things I kind of first did when I started out as a researcher, and that was conducting ethnographic research with victims of domestic violence and abuse. So ethnographic research is research where you're basically trying to step into the shoes of the person you're doing the research with. So in this case, victims of domestic violence and abuse. And to this day, I think it's the most powerful thing I've ever done. And I just sort of spent the day with these women, really, really, truly and deeply listened to their stories. And I think that's what I want to finish on tonight, is just that really, really powerful experience of truly listening. And I hope that that's something that we can all experience and open our minds to tonight. So thanks ever so much for having me, and really, really looking forward to watching the rest of the exhibition. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Lara. That was really a pleasure to listen to you. And I think that some of the questions that you raised, especially like what is the role of in preventing violence, is something that we've been wondering ourselves, and is something that you're going to see very, very soon, we've kind of like thought of with the artworks of one of the artists. So I think you're going to enjoy this very much. So thank you so much. And now we are going to move on to the next speaker, who is Ana Flores Reyes. Ana Flores is the Advice Service Manager at Solas Women's Aid, which is a London-based charity supporting women and children affected by domestic and sexual violence. Ana has dedicated her career to advocating for survivors of domestic abuse, sexual violence, trafficking, honor-based violence, and FGM. She has co-developed and coordinated the implementation of domestic violence prevention program, and also has developed and coordinated projects aimed at supporting women with multiple disadvantages, such as women with no recourse to public funds, or with substance use support needs, or women with mental health issues, or homeless women. And we partnered with Solas in 2019, and as part of Revoluciones, we ran a resiliency program that included trauma-sensitive yoga, mindfulness, and coaching sessions that we both ran, like us, and also in partnership with the University East London, and they've been really, really supportive. So it's great that you are with us tonight, Ana. So now is your turn to talk.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here, and to see some of your faces like a year after we last met. I'm going to talk a little bit about the reality of the last year for the women that we've been supporting, and a little bit about the project and how valuable it was for Solas to be partnering with Sheroes. So this year saw many women and children live two pandemics at once: COVID-19 and domestic abuse. While government guidelines urge us to stay home to stay safe, for survivors of gender-based violence, home was the least safe place possible. Women were trapped with their abusers, cut off from their support networks, and coping with additional pressures, such as the closure of schools and the financial impact of job loss and furlough schemes, which have led to increased stress at home, and therefore an increase in the frequency and the severity of abuse. During the first month after the lockdown began in March 2020, 16 women and girls were killed in suspected domestic homicides, more than triple the number from the same period in 2019. At least 10 more died in the 2 subsequent months. The oldest of them was 82 years old. The youngest, killed alongside her mother and her 4-year-old sister, was 2. As domestic abuse helplines braced for an increase in demand, many services, including our advice line, experienced the opposite during the initial lockdown months, as survivors were unable to seek help because it wasn't safe for them to access support. As lockdown restrictions were eased over the summer months, calls to our advice line went up, with our service recording over 1,600 calls in September. When a second lockdown was announced, we saw another surge in calls, with many women stating that they could not bear the thought of going through another lockdown trapped indoors with their abusers. Our advice service saw not only an increase in calls, but women reporting an increase in the frequency and severity of the abuse that they were experiencing, as well as new coercive and controlling tactics, including perpetrators making false allegations around women breaching COVID-19 restrictions, preventing women from leaving the house and using government guidelines as an excuse, threatening to expose women to COVID-19, among others. We saw risk levels go up and many women come forward in crisis. We also saw women come forward with a wider variety of needs, no longer just calling for initial advice, but experiencing real hardship, including destitution and homelessness, and needing support with things such as supermarket vouchers for food, medication, immediate accommodation, and mental health crisis supports. The pandemic affected migrant women and women of color in a disproportionate way, And we saw a rise in requests for help from women with no recourse to public funds and women from marginalized communities. The pandemic has also created additional barriers for women seeking help. With statutory services closed and operating remotely and refuge capacity, finding safety has proved really challenging, and women were often turned away from services or offered unsuitable accommodation, often with not even a mattress to sleep on. Mental health services also saw a huge increase in demand, resulting in many women not being able to access support around their emotional well-being due to waiting lists being immensely long or closed. As we prepare to come out of another period of restrictions, we will begin to unpeel additional layers around the true impact that this pandemic has had on survivors and their children. Solace provides an intersectional, strengths-based and trauma-informed approach to supporting survivors of violence against women and girls. This means that we work to recognize and challenge interdependent systems of disadvantage faced by many women, especially women of color and migrant women, disabled women, and LGBTQ women. And that our framework for supporting survivors of abuse recognizes signs and symptoms of trauma and also understands the need for a holistic approach that is able to meet women's different needs in their recovery journey. Our work is empowering and centered on women's voices, and these shape the way that we deliver services. The partnership with Lon-art and Sheroes and their resiliency program allowed us to really embody that holistic approach. With services often underfunded and under extreme pressure, being able to offer service users a program where they were able to access trauma-informed yoga and mindfulness classes and also a ceramic workshop were extremely invaluable in creating emotional safety. These allowed for women to reduce feelings of isolation, improve well-being and resilience, and reconnect with their bodies, feelings, and emotions in a safe way. The resiliency program was also an invaluable tool for staff, as we were offered workshops focused on trauma and its impact on survivors, but also the impact of trauma on practitioners, and ways of creating resiliency strategies and incorporating this in our work with survivors. Staff were also paired up with coaches and encouraged to create the space for reflective practice. The importance of these reflective spaces can often be forgotten when there is such a huge sense of urgency to our work and to what we do every day. Last but not the least, it is worth mentioning the importance of exhibitions like this one that shine a spotlight on violence against women and girls, break the silence, and instill conversations on a wider level. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the artwork that is being presented today. And once again, it's such a pleasure to be in this room with you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you thank you, Solas. Thank you so much, Anna. And thanks also to hear from you how it was experienced, the program, because we read the feedback and everything. But yeah, thank you, and I'm glad personally that it went really well and it was very useful. And as to what you were saying at the beginning about how the pandemic has worsened the situation and everything you shared, it made it so clear how women and issues that affects us are so low priority for certain people, or most people in government circles. So yeah, thank you so much for the work that you guys do, because you're just in the front line and it's amazing. Thanks. Okay, so I think now we are finally ready to look at the exhibition. So I'm gonna hand over to the curators, Maria, Chloe, and Ankita, and then Loretta will share also the exhibition on the screen. I forgot to say that while we prepared that I hope you actually enjoy the exhibition, and I also hope that you take the message with you, and yeah, just keep sharing and keep giving visibility.
Okay, so can you hear me? Yeah. So good evening, everybody. Well, I'm Maria. I'm the creative director on Lon-art and in Sheroes exhibition. And the creators team, Chloe, Ankita, and myself will be introducing the artists that took part in this exhibition. It's worth to mention that since the beginning of Sheroes project, we have built an important community of artists across the world that share our vision and our objective. And I would like to thank all of them for their commitment, generosity, and courage, because it's not easy to talk about these things, about abuse, about rape, about violence. So I thank them all. And I thank them, all the artists, and I thank all the artists from the previous editions that are here tonight. I'm very pleased to see you here sharing another new exhibition with us. So Sheroes-Revoluciones includes artworks reflecting open gender-based violence, including domestic violence, sexual and digital violence, and other type of violence that are more invisible, as Gisela mentioned before. And with this work, we hope to encourage conversation that transcend the taboo and shame surrounding violence. And what we want is to invite visitors to take an active role in the solution as well as in prevention. I was very pleased to hear Lara talking about representation of women and in the arts, and well, in the arts and in our visual history in general. I think it's very important to work with women artists representing women and representing their struggles and their victories. I think this is paramount to change the narrative, and our artists, this is what they do. And also Anna mentioned prevention. And I think with this exhibition, well, maybe our artists and these artworks in specific, they are not going to go into galleries, maybe because they don't make people feel comfortable, but they could go to public spaces to open up conversations. They could go to universities, they could go to institutions, to the streets. I think it's important to have this idea of art to be conceived as part of our public spaces, to educate our eyes. Anyways, I'm going to start talking about the first artist, that is Lydia. Fantastic. And we can see the first sentence in Lydia is hard to see. Can we go down a little bit? Hard to see and even harder to say it. Lydia has been an activist artist for more than 10 years, dedicating her work to raise awareness about violence against women. She does an amazing job. She is not here tonight because she had to work, but yeah, I'm going to introduce her work. And I wanted to repeat again the fact of 2 women a week are killed by a current or former partner in England and Wales alone. And in total, 1.6 million women experience domestic abuse. This is a conversation that we need to have. And I think Lydia through her images, sparked this conversation. The images are from Lydia, but we collaborated, Lon-art Creative the mock-up. We wanted to imagine that we have these uncomfortable visuals and images in public spaces like the tube, for example, in transport, or well, in other places that we don't expect. So what it will be, so we have to ask ourselves, what it will be your reaction if you see this in streets, like, for example, what would you think? You will think, oh, this is road, this is very uncomfortable again. Is as uncomfortable as the victims feel at home. So Lydia talks about, I mean, I encourage you to visit her website. There is at the end of the page. I think she does an amazing job, and she plays very well with women's representation through the Barbies, for example, and as well, like with these images that some families like give of everything is normal, but then inside the houses there is a real drama, and because it's very hard to start a conversation, to recognize that there is domestic violence in your house, and I think we need to break the silence. And if we see these images, I think it will create this space for the women to speak up. anyways, without more delay, you can visit. Well, this last image is an exhibition. This billboard was part of an exhibition called Gaslight that Lydia was part of. And we really think that artists, activist artists like Lydia should be in public spaces. We always picture a woman with a black eye. When we talk about domestic violence, there are other ways to visually engage people in a more attractive way. And then to open the conversation and so people can take part of the solution, but as well as the prevention as well. So I'm gonna introduce we're gonna carry on talking about other aspects in domestic violence through other artists, but Ankita, my colleague, will introduce the next artist.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'd like to introduce our next artist, Michaela Haynes, who is an artist working in drawing, painting, and sculpture, and draws inspiration from the things that are happening around her in the world. So yeah, welcome, Michaela. Would you like to come and say a few words?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, yes. Hi, right, I'm in my studio at the moment, so I've got my sculptures here, ready to show you. I'll just turn this around. Hold on, how do we do that there? Right, so my work is about, I saw a quote on, going the wrong way, there we go, on the Women's Aid website that said, and this was, I think, 2015, so it's probably gone up vastly now. But at that time, they were receiving, the police were receiving 100 calls an hour due to domestic abuse. So it really struck me. So I decided to make, for the last exhibition, I don't know if any of you saw, I made some big sculptures, some big torsos there. It was about domestic abuse again, about being controlled. It was about dancing. And those were the big two. But then I decided to make 100 smaller ones to remember each person that's rang in 1 hour, has rang the police about domestic abuse. These I've only just started making in the last, they're made out of paper clay. They're not fired yet, but when they're finished, they're all going to be, I've decided to do them all white. They're going to be glazed white, and they're going to be happy with my drawings on them that I've been doing through lockdown, because I've been drawing flowers in lockdown, and they're going to have my drawings on them like this one when it's finished. So there's 100 there to depict. I mean, it looks vast already, and that's just 1 hour of calls about domestic abuse. And when I suffered domestic abuse, and I called the police at least 3 times. I had various different reactions to one of them. One of the first reactions, them telling me that it was domestic abuse when I didn't even realise myself. And a lot of people and mainly women don't realise that they're in domestic abuse, because, as Maria said, it's not just the typical black eye. And also you're kind of you're brainwashed into thinking this is your fault and it's you and it's all you, and you don't realize that it's not actually your fault a lot of the time. So I wanted to emphasize that the second time I rang the police, the third time I rang the police, sorry, they didn't even listen to what I'd said, and said that and this was only 2 years ago. The police didn't even recognise that it was domestic abuse. Sent a young lad to talk to me who wasn't even interested, and it was really embarrassing. So I wanted to raise awareness of the calls to the police, and what I want to do when I've finished all these, when they're glazed and fired, what the plan is if I don't get arrested, is to exhibit them outside Ripley Police Station where I live. I don't care if I get arrested. I might get arrested. But yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Thank you so much, Michaela. It's been really empowering to hear you speak so openly. Yeah, and I agree, it's like very important to raise awareness and create a community that we can support each other, even if we don't receive external support. And also, I also want to say congratulations on finishing your 100 torsos.
Yay, thank you.
But yeah, I'll pass on to Chloe now to, yeah.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hiya. So I'm going to talk about a different type of domestic violence, which is child abuse. It's very difficult to actually evaluate the number of child sexual abuse cases because generally they're not reported until the victims become teenagers or adults. And often these crimes are not disclosed or detected because they're crimes that are only witnessed by the abuser and the victim, and the abuser is usually very close to the victim. And again, it's not just physical, it can be verbal, it can be emotional. So to talk about the next artwork, we've got Anne Plaisance, who's going to talk about bedrooms.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I guess I'm doing a lot of difficult projects, and I like to deal with taboo projects in general, because I think it's important to talk about them, to put light, to shine light on them, and so that we can do something about them. So about 6 years ago, I began to work on a project called Bedrooms. A job, if I can say it's a job between the bed room and the bedroom, because very often child sexual abuse happens in bedrooms, in houses where kids should feel safe, but they don't. And what I decided to do, and what I began to do 6 years ago, is to collect testimonies of adults who had been abused during their childhood. And what I did is I collected little dolls that I pinned in boxes with handwritten testimonies. So from far away, you have the impression that it's something very innocent, because I used a lot of bright and childish, I would say, colors that you could find in a child bedroom. And I researched a lot of testimonies that were just, that struck me. The criteria selection was, wow, I can't believe something like that happened. Or it's just, it hurts me so much to read that. So up to this day, I have like 60 boxes that are ready, and I plan to do about, I plan to do 100 of these boxes. This project, Bedrooms, has been shown in several places. It was shown in Warsaw in a different format because it was on the street. Then it was shown a few years ago in the Boston area. I'm French, but I live in the United States for the last 5 years. So it was shown in a Unitarian church, but it was censored after a few days because it was too triggering for people. So that shows the power of art, that even dolls and written testimonies can trigger a lot of emotions. I tried to talk with the minister at the time and said that actually if someone is triggered, they should get help, and we should organize conversations with psychologists, social workers, to open up a conversation and to help heal these people. But there was no will about that. But the exhibition was shown later on in a different setting during an exhibition in South Shore, in the south of Boston. And it was very moving to have survivors come to me and thank me to talk about the subject. So that's really what I try to do in my art, whether it's with bedrooms or whether with other projects like Wonder Women, a photographic project that I did with survivors of domestic violence in a shelter in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I hope to finish the bedrooms project in the next year. I myself a survivor of child sexual abuse. It happened to me when I was 12. And my goal is really to help others overcome that, but also speak about that so that it doesn't happen to many kids. I have kids too, and I just was terrified that something would happen to them. So I want to tackle the conversation, this difficult conversation, this difficult subject, because the more we talk about it, the more people are informed, the more the people are educated, the more the people are empowered, and the more we can deal with it and do something about it and prevent it. So that's bedrooms. And coming back to domestic violence coming back to women, adults who are survivors of domestic violence, I took a bit a different approach after working with survivors in a shelter. I was really deeply humbled, honored to work with them, since I find personally that they're extremely strong. They have a lot of resilience, and they are Sheroes, as you know. Sheroes, Wonder Women, they are an example for the society, and they're very often considered as I don't know, as people who we are not talking about. There's a lot of shame and guilt because it sends back a mirror of our society. It shows that yes, there is violence. Yes, the home that should be safe is not safe. There are women who are, there are men who are violencing women. We need to change the conversation. We need to change in the media the conversation. Like, you know, last week in the United States, there were 10 people killed. And I was shocked that even the New York Times was still putting a title like 10 women of Asian descent were killed. It should have been a white man has killed Asian women. So there's a lot of work to do. And right now I'm working on a project that is called Wonder Women Now, to empower women, to inspire them, to give them hope, to empower survivors, to show the resiliency. So the objective is really to give a lot of hope. It will be under the form of a symbolic house to show what women and kids are going through. So you will go, you know, like from the living room to the kitchen, to the bedroom, to the bathroom, etc. It will be a very strong transformational experience for visitors. It's an international art project, and I'm beginning with Boston. I hope to organize the exhibition, the first exhibition next year. But you know, COVID, so you can't plan anything. You know that you can't plan. So I'm in the process of, I have already 14 international artists that that are involved. Some of them are part of the exhibition that is presented today with Sheroes. And the objective is really to have an international tour. So Boston, New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, Dubai, Warsaw, Berlin, and well, whatever is possible.
That sounds amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a very ambitious program. It's like for now I'm alone to do it. I myself, 4 months ago, just to give some hope to the folks out here, I left my abusive husband 4 months ago with my kids. And that was the best decision ever I did. I don't consider myself a survivor anymore, but more of a thriver. I mean, I really want to use my experience to help others, to empower others, to help, to inspire, to give tools. So Wonder Women Now is the project that will help do that. And later on, my dream is to create a foundation to help other women. And
that's amazing work. Thank you so much for sharing. We really look forward to seeing the Wonder Women work. I'd like to introduce Thyme now. So Thyme is talking about something that is less known, and it's one of the consequences of domestic abuse, well, physical violence, and it's body dysmorphia. So Thyme, if you want to talk a bit about what inspired you to do your work.
Yeah, so for my, it's a performative video, so it looks at domestic abuse and violence within the home and how this can affect one's mental health in regards to body dysmorphia. So where someone spends a lot of time dwelling on the flaws of their appearance, and this can stem from both physical violence and abuse, or also mental or emotive, where someone can repeatedly point these things out, and then that manifests into something larger and can continue even when those points of abuse have been dispelled. And so often I talk about lipstick as a medium and how it's typically used for empowerment or as an act of transformation, but it also can be used as a mask to hide what's going on beneath the surface. And so the title Masker, so that's the origin of the word for mask. And it's medieval Latin, and it means, in that use, it means mask, but it also means nightmare or witch. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say, because I don't have a lot to say.
Thank you. I'll invite you all to watch the entire video. It's really, really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. I think Maria is going to introduce the next artwork.
Yeah, well, thank you very much so far for your honest stories, personal stories, and it's amazing. Well, thank you, Anne, for Wonder Women, for the next project, and for being so brave to do something about it, about everything that you experienced. So we are going to continue with a type of abuse that is less visible. One more time. 1 in 2 young women have experienced controlling behavior in an intimate relationship. How difficult, as I think was Michaela, that was saying that it's very difficult to spot, like once you are in a relationship, if it's happening, if it's wrong, if that is normal. So to question yourself is quite difficult. The next artist is Susana Millán, and her work, the things that go unsaid. Susana Millán is an actress, and she met us. She came to Sheroes Sheroes-Revoluciones. She really liked the project and she contacted us to participate in our next projects. I think she's very brave, and I think like the power of performance is amazing. The way she uses to raise awareness and to tell her stories as well. But anyways, Susanna will tell you more. Good evening, Susanna. You there?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Tell us more about the things that go unsaid. We know that is part of breaking the cycles. That is a bigger play, theater play.
Yes, so I created this play as my dissertation for my master's in acting, and I just wanted to do something that meant something to me. This is the first play that I've created, and it's based on how at some point I had this idea that the history repeats itself, right? And in my family, there has been a lot of history of abuse, and it's 3 generations of women from the same family. So my grandmother, my mother, and me. And in each generation, the abuse has become more invisible. But it has been so normalized that when it got to me, I just couldn't notice that I was in this abusive relationship when I was 16. And the things that go unsaid, these are the things that I wish I had told my mother. So I decided to write a monologue to tell my own story in the play from my 17 or 16-year-old self point of view. So the language that I use is quite subtle and naive, so that it like reflects how innocent I was back then, and it's how that control creeps in, and it starts being this very, very romantic story where someone adores you so much, that they love you so much that, but in reality is just a way of controlling you by in my case, it wasn't violent, it wasn't it was guilt. He used guilt to control me. He knew I was kind, and he was very insecure, and he just wanted to like feel loved desperately. So what he did, he just started, controlling me using guilt by telling me what I could wear or not. Or if you wear tank tops, if you wear anything revealing, if you wear cleavage, that's just going to make me feel really bad because I just can't endure how other boys look at you. Oh, please do not talk to those boys. It just makes me feel so bad. I can't handle it. It just hurts me so much. It got to a point in which I was really uncomfortable having sex with him, and he would use guilt again. Well, if you don't have sex with me, then it's just because you don't love me. If you love me, you have to have sex with me. And he would make me have sex with him, even if I was crying. And the worst part is that I didn't know this was abuse until like maybe 2 years ago, after watching 13 Reasons Why, which is this coming of age series that deals a lot with consent. And then everything started falling into place, and I realized, and I had never told my mother, I had never told my parents, I was invisible, I didn't have a voice. And so I thought that I needed to give my 16-year-old self like a voice. And when I told my story, the shame went away and I started to feel empowered. So yeah, that's a little bit the summary of it. I don't know if it makes sense.
Well, thank you very much. I was like very moved for your work, to be honest, because as you said, you were talking from this 16 to 17 years old girl. And I think like we all been in a similar place. it's very difficult to understand what is expected from us when we are in a very young relationship. And it's very difficult for young boys as well to realize what is their role and how far they can go. And is where is the haze? Is the haze is, you know what I mean, is the limits, where is it? So I think your monologue says a lot of things that we all need to be aware. So thank you very much, Susanna, for sharing and for keep coming back to us in every exhibition. You add a lot, and I think acting is a very powerful tool. So we are going to move to the next artist, Farnoosh. Farnoosh Amini is from Iran. She is an emerging artist to watch. She is amazing, powerful, bold, raw, and she talks with through these 2 artworks, Rebirth and the entitled one that she created about violence within, again, this intimacy. But Farnoosh, tell us more.
Hi everyone, thanks very much, Maria. Yes, I'm really honored to be a part of Sheroes last time and this time, and it gives a chance to everybody to share their stories, and I think it's really brave. I was just listening to some of you talking. I was really moved. My work is basically, I try to have an indirect approach to the subject, and the subjects that I normally pick, they've got a really deep impact in me. I try a lot to experiment with the material language, the connection, the disconnection, which I think that connection and disconnection in an indirect way can bring more attention to the subject being the violence against women. You can read in the newspaper, you can listen to the things on a TV or a radio, but you can just ignore it, or just maybe it's too overwhelming, you don't want to watch those things or hear those stories. But I think the language of art and an indirect language is just, I try to create a question in the viewer's mind. And I think by questioning and trying to find out what is this art is about, it just have a more permanent effect on people's mind. This work that is just came on the screen, I call it Rebirth. I have used a ready-made object, a chair, and the reason I've used the chair, it can represent the person, it can represent the space, and is an invasion of that very private space. You sit on a chair, it's very close to your genital. It could be referred to a woman's genital when it's been violated. And I've used the vulture because vulture flies over a dying prey, and it's got this sense of detecting the death. But on the other hand, it symbolizes life and rebirth, which again, I'm referring to the women and maybe the moment of giving birth to a child, the suffering that the woman goes through, and at the same time, they bring life onto the earth. My next work, if you wanna look at it, I look at lots of political, religious beliefs that we have. I believe that the violence against women comes from power, and when you have power, you have control, and by control, you can bring abuse to the other person. It could be a woman or it could be a man. I look at these beliefs. It could be cultural, it could be political, it could be religious belief, and the end is the woman being a victim of that. In this work, I have used bed because it is the most intimate, private place. If we go to bed, we think it's the safest place. We sometimes cry ourselves to death because we feel safe in there, but we can get violated in there as well. I have used red wine and black ink in this work. If we go closer, maybe some other images probably you can see better. The reason that I've used red wine is because alcohol is forbidden in Islam and is considered a sin. I have used black ink. That's what is normally used in the Islamic calligraphy. And the use of knot, I use it a lot in my work. Again, women, they go to these holy shrines and they say a prayer and they tie the rag to the shrine, and the knot represent the dead end and animals.
Thank you, Farnoosh. I think your work is very interesting. At Lon-art, we are a diverse team. We come from different parts of the world, and we want to do the same with the artists that form our community. I think different perspectives bring different conversations and different points of view to the same topic. So thank you very much for adding so much to this exhibition. So the next artist, Jenny Kaiser, is not tonight with us, but my colleague Ankita will talk briefly about her work. That is, by the way, very disturbing. But yeah, anyways, Ankita.
Yeah, so let me just share a little bit about Jenny. She's a multidisciplinary artist, and her work here, Rape Kit. So Rape Kit is referring to the medical items that are used by doctors to collect physical evidence surrounding sexual assault allegations. So Jenny's work kind of deals with the trauma that continues, that is still faced by victims of rape, even in the aftermath of an attack. So she sent us a little bit of a text, which I'll share on her behalf. People who are raped have to go through such examinations with strangers, doctors and detectives, being photographed and questioned, and so on, often only for the rape kit to be stored away without any real investigation or care. Then there is the 6-month wait for the AIDS test, the family and friends who cannot talk about it, something that is too uncomfortable for them. It's hard not to fall into a black hole, forever chained. There is no full healing. The scars will always be there, but we can fight every day to raise awareness with our voices and expressions. It is hard, but we cannot allow such violent acts to silence us. So yeah, absolutely resonate with that last sentiment. It's a very difficult topic, but one that is necessary to discuss and raise awareness about. And then I also want to point out that Jenny is going to be doing an Instagram takeover later in May, where she'll be doing a live performance and sharing more about her work and these issues. So please stay tuned for more information. Yeah, and so moving on, I'd like to introduce Divya Mittal. So Divya is an interdisciplinary artist exploring femininity, memory, and bending binaries of gender and cultural identity. So yeah, I believe Divya, you're here. Welcome. Would you like to share a little bit?
Hi, Ankita, for the introduction. So the work I Won't Do It was made in 2014, just for myself. And at the time, I had no intention of sharing it. It was created in a format of a diary, recounting my childhood experiences and imagining an alternative future. Text and repetition have been an integral part of my work. And I think it came about because either I was unable to use my voice in real life, or when I was standing up for my rights and protection, it felt like I was hitting a stone wall. In everyday situations, I'm sure some of us can relate, whereas women were silenced, labeled, or treated treated differently. So making this work became a very cathartic process for me of taking ownership of my own life. In the sketchbook, I used drawings of public locations and objects that stimulated a feeling of home. Although this idea of home never really existed, but I want to read a quote by the artist Zerina Hashmi that stayed with me over the years. Home is a foreign place. Home is an idea we carry with us wherever we go. Additionally, the sketchbook includes a series of photographs of the action where I kiss objects in the house that most disgust me. The idea was to see what emotion it evokes in me, also to comment on abuse within domestic spaces, and therefore by somebody who we're very familiar with and trust. The audio work refers to the period of 2020 lockdown specifically, when there was lack of access to healthcare and mental health support, and an alarming rise in domestic violence globally. Broadly, the work tries to encapsulate the stages of abuse and the feelings that may arise with the repetition of and cycle of trauma. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you, Divya. And I'm like continually in awe of all of your stories that I'm hearing today, and like listening and hearing about all of your journeys. So yeah, thank you. And again, I want to point out that Divya is actually doing a takeover this weekend on the 26th and 27th. So everyone, please join us on Instagram so we can hear Divya share a bit more about her work and her process. Thank you so much.
So our next artist is Abigail. Abigail exhibited with us for the first edition of Revoluciones, and she raises issues that women experience a bit later in life. So Abigail, if you want to say a few words.
Hello, thank you. Thank you to all the artists who've so bravely shared their work. I suspect some might think, where does my work, which is about making the menopause visible, sit within this context of violence? And there are sort of three layers that I'd like to talk about in relation to violence. And I think the first is for those women who have a quite extreme experience of menopause. Some women breeze through it, hardly know, they just go, oh, I've stopped bleeding. But for those that go through an extended perimenopause, the period before you stop bleeding, the impact of the myriad of symptoms that can be caused by this change in one's hormones can be quite a violent experience. As I explored the subject as a result of my own experience at running parallel to taking a master's in as a designer maker, having been a costume designer all my life, and realizing just how powerful was my experience of menopause, and I couldn't really set it apart from exploring myself emerging as a visual artist. I sought the voices of other women, because my expression of it was as if I'd been hit by a bus, very English version, looking on blogs with American women that hit by a truck, hit by a ton of bricks, the sense that you're sort of moving through life, you're a mature woman, your children may have grown up, you're feeling a sense of empowerment at where you're at as a mature woman, and suddenly it's like, bam, your life is completely disrupted by, I think, last count, there's about 38 symptoms which are associated with menopause, with this natural change in hormones. So that's the first layer of violence, and that's the one that I've predominantly sought to express in my own work, drawing on my own experience. And another layer is the violation that women feel quite often from the medical profession. Doctors, nurses, until quite recently, there's a big move happening in terms of menopause awareness, and is that they don't understand that there are all these symptoms linked, and women going along and talking about having a sore, dry vagina, which is known as vaginal atrophy, have a glass of wine, and watch some TV with your husband and maybe it'll be okay. Not being heard, not joining the dots of the experience that these women are having. There's no trust in the medical profession, that the place where you go for help with your health to not be a safe place, to come out feeling worse than you went in. I think the only time I went to the doctor about my menopause was to get a medical certificate. And when I said I knew I was in and what I was struggling with, the response was, well, I can give you HRT or antidepressants. And I said, no, thank you. And walked out and cried my eyes out. So there was no one to go to. And then the third layer of violence that's associated with menopause is in relation to statistics of domestic abuse of women in the age gap or age group where they might be in menopause, and also suicides of women in that age group. So what I am hoping to do with my work is to get people talking about it, talking about the menopause, because I think if women understand what they're going through more, that hopefully they can talk to their partners, their families, their friends, so that they understand, because mood swings are quite a, you know, we're going through a second oh, sorry, I've lost the word. There you go. Menopausal woman, the word's gone. Puberty. You know, we expect teenagers to be all over the place. Well, menopausal women can be all over the place. And when we think how challenging our teenage children may have been, menopausal women are challenging to their partners, friends, and families, because there is a loss of control. And if that's understood, that might not result in some of the domestic violence and the suicides that happen to women in menopause. I think that's about it. I hope I've covered enough for people to understand why menopause as a taboo part of women's experience is included within such a powerful, intense, and terrible range of violence that women experience. But again, it's about talking about it. So for me, the role of my art is hopefully to prevent women having as bad an experience some women have had. So yes, I show my work in health centres and libraries, and I really want to talk to men, because if men can understand what their wives are going through, and quite often women don't want to acknowledge it. I've witnessed quite a lot of middle-aged women sort of seeing my work and actually really not wanting to engage. No, I'm not in menopause, because it feels like something shameful, because it feels like you are coming to the end of your fertility. And unfortunately in our society, we don't celebrate mature women as wise and having had a lot of experience. They're almost redundant, having been made redundant myself in my early 50s, you know, trying to get back into employment. Nobody wants a middle-aged woman who can only work part-time because of being in menopause. And that's where this piece of work has come from, this life crumpled, this sort of sense of, you know, the life drawing that's now been screwed up and thrown onto the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
So can I just
Thanks for being back. Sorry, go on.
Just to finish
Yeah,
off.
of course, go on.
Right, can you scroll down for me, because I can't remember it. Where was it?
I think it's above the video.
Yes. So this quote here, my father, who's now 90 and lives in Spain, is incredibly supportive of the work that I do. And when I first sent him a photograph of Life Crumpled, this is what he said: paradoxical in that crumpled seems spirited, reflective even, embattled maybe, but not beaten, never. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Amazing, Abigail. Thank you very much. I think it's very important to give visibility to this big sector of women in society. So we're running out of time. So we are going to hurry to welcome Veronica Restrepo. Veronica Restrepo is a Colombian ceramist artist living in London, and she will be soon leaving London for Australia. So this is her last show with us. And again, like Veronica has been a member as well of Lon-art for many years, and her work is amazing. It brings diversity to the exhibitions. And well, so Veronica, tell us about your work.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to see and very powerful to hear everybody's stories from their personal experience, from like all this braveness of speaking out and putting it out in the art as well. And we hope with all these stories, with all our work, with all these conversations, we can keep moving and change this and contribute to changing how things are going. So my project, I'm gonna try and be brave. My project is called La Urna de las Mulas, the urn of the mules, ancestral goddess, reduced to power, sacred ashes, souls are falling. So my sculpture is a tribute to the women woodpeckers that have suffered and died over the years of the fair war on drugs. So I'm from Colombia, and so you all can imagine this is a very deep subject for me, but I also work with vulnerable young people in London, and I see the tragedy is a tragedy what the illegal drug trafficking has leaves behind. No, it's and I think that we don't really talk too much about this, and I want us to talk more about this. And I wanted to look for the war on drugs from the women's perspective as well. So like it's like in the media, we don't hear really much about this. We don't hear about the stories of people, the stories of the women, or the stories of the victims. So I really I've been feeling it more and more. It's a subject that I've been very interesting for a long time. I have done a lot of work related to women and women's issues, but like recently is like growing in me that not doing anything. The women's perspective in this is really sad. It's like the hidden story, the hidden victims, and these women are like disposable. Like they have layers of violence, they have had domestic violence, they have been abused by the system, but they don't have education, they live in really extreme poverty, they are single mothers, and then they are victims to this, like is human trafficking as well. So I wanted to highlight as well this idea of the container, the body and the women as container, but the intestines, the tissues, this very intimate, like it's as intimate as also the ovaries and the vagina and the uterus used for all this. And also these women like risk their life, they risk to leave everything behind. They usually go into prison, and this is not something that's been much discussed. And I wanted to open these conversations as well, like make a tribute to all these women and then open the conversation and be able to contribute to having a different future where we can do different things. Like my friend that researching this subject and works very hard in this subject, she calls it like the static bicycle. And I don't want it to be any more static. I want to contribute, and I want people to talk about it, and I want it to be part of also of this discussion about the violence against women. It's like the last hidden, especially for my country and Latin America. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Vero. I think it's very important to give visibility to other type of violence that are related to specific cultures or specific countries or specific as well situations that women might find themselves. So I think is we don't have to forget about all these women, and thank you very much for bringing this up into the conversation. And following Veronica, we thought that Laila's work, Laila Sharif is the next artist that we are presenting. She is from Libya. She is an artist and activist as well. And as well, she is gonna tell us about her work and yes, the importance of women activists in this case. Good evening, Laila, you there?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so my work is, I have 3 artworks for the exhibition, and most of them talk about violence against women in my country. Starting from the fact that Libya right now is a lawless country where there's no justice system working, or there's no law and order, and for almost 7 years now, law defenders or lawmakers were the first targeted by militias and outlaws, where they were. Do you have the presentation ready? Hello, Maria? Maria?
Yes.
Okay, can you put the presentation in?
So I'm not controlling, is my colleague. So is this the video?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you? Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, there you go.
So the artwork is a tribute to one of the latest victim. And okay, so the UN report talks about the fact that there's a spiral of assassinations or violence against law defender, started from Salwa Bugagis, who was one of the political figures in the beginning, and then it spiraled to many other activists, not just women, but mainly female activists and lawmaker defenders are targeted. So Salwa Bugagis, the lady in this photo, was the first one to be assassinated in 2014. And after that, it spiraled down to many others. So the artwork is Western Dream, which is inspired by the poem Harlem, that speaks about how a dream can fester. So for us, a decaying dream of a free, peaceful country is what we have right now. Okay, and then the second, okay, this is Salwa Bugagis, the lady I spoke about. And this was one of the ladies in the parliament. Most of them are political figures.
Yes.
And yeah, so just to give the audience the opportunity to look at them. So for 7 years, we had this going, and there's no law, there's no justice, and it's still going on. Most of the activists had to leave the country because they were targeted. And then the second one, the second artwork. Okay, it's not showing.
The second work
is
at the top.
Yeah, I dream of peace, I see war.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a little bit down.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Not this one. Okay, we can speak about this one. Yeah. This one is about war and how women in general are the weakest gender in this situation. So for 10 again, for almost now we're starting another decade with the pandemic going. Ladies are females are more, or women are more vulnerable to a lot of okay. So can we go to the okay? So basically what you have here is the old city, the Arch of Victory, which is one of the most one of the landmarks of the city, and next to it there's a palm, the sign of peace and tranquility, while the lady is patched up to not speak about the violence she's facing, with the background of different places of Tripoli. This was created during the war last year. So the third one, because I'm trying to fast up. So I dream of peace, I see war. Because
yeah, I think that one, I don't know, it must be any mistakes because we've got just 3 of them, like this one. And I think you're referring to the other one that must be like being mistake on the website. Is the photography, isn't it? Like
it's a digital illustration.
It's a digital, yeah. Okay, yes, we will add it, but please tell us about it, and we will add it afterwards. Yeah, sorry for that.
Okay, it's okay. The third one is I dream of peace, I see war. It speaks about 10 years of the start of the unrest in Libya in 2011. Okay, now it's more than that. The country remains in turmoil. The failure to transit into a stable democracy and the civil war that's going on, all the chaos and how the new generation dream of peace, but they see only war around them, and how the okay, so how can, and it does question, how can we take the ship back to peaceful waters, let's say? How can we go in the right path to peace, which seems to be so long and hard for us to take? As we enter another decade, we are still struggling to find a way, and at the same time, so that's it. It's like the new generation dreams about peace, but they can see only war. So that's why the dove is what they dream of, but in the eye, they see only the war. That's basically it.
And it's beautiful, Laila, and I think it's so important. The artists like you are so brave as well, because activists across the world, women activists, and they are enduring not just the fact that they are activists, but also the fact that they're women. We're not used to have activist women. So that's why your work is very important and very brave as well. Thank you very much, and I'm very sorry for slip that image, the last image that you were talking about. I know we're conscious about the time, it's 8:30, and but we still have 4 more artists to go. We will try to go very quick. The next topic to cover is digital violence. Digital violence is violence that is invisible. There are no laws created to control it, and we thought that was very relevant to talk about it. The first artist that we're gonna show is Rachel Romeo. Sorry, she did a modern day flasher, and we thought that was wonderful, like to show this type of violence. Rachel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Maria.
Hello. Tell us more about it.
So the modern day flasher is a true example of some of the things I face. Those who are familiar with my work will be aware that I am often in a position where I like to expose my experiences, hoping to make an emotional connection with others through my artwork, and also highlight the issues that Black females in London experience, and make that connection with other females or people that identify as women. So the modern day flasher is about my experience of minding my own business, going on my DMs, and to be matched with a dick pic. I don't want to see any dick pics, but men tend to believe, not all men, but as I say all men like that, but yeah, not every man, but there are a good few men out there that feel it is necessary to expose themselves and think it's okay because it's over digital media. And if, you know, we look at history and men exposing themselves in the street, they've now kind of done a hybrid version. And when we look at digital violence against women, you know, I remember having the internet in my house when I was 16. And, you know, how I never realized, because we wasn't educated as, you know, the millennial generation, we were kind of the crash test dummies of the internet. And the amount of sexual exploitation and abuse that took place, people pretending to care, but really are just trying to get sexual gratification and so forth. So I'm kind of an OG in that game. So I captured it with this piece. At first, you know, as a teenager, it was almost like, due to the destructive narratives created by the patriarchy, it was almost like you should be flattered that men are kind of giving you negative attention over the internet. You should be flattered. And as I've got older, I've begun to toy with them, and I enjoy mocking them, because, you know, it's okay to say no, and it's okay to not be okay with what they're exposing to you, because it's not for your benefit, it's for theirs, and it is violent.
Yeah, I think we really need to be to have more education around digital violence. I added to your sorry, to your artwork how to prevent this. So yeah, I think it's important to be conscious of how much harm digital work can do to women. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing, and thank you for being such a powerful art activist. Okay, so the next group, well, it is a collective, Onut. They are not with us tonight, unfortunately, but maybe we can go very quickly through the work. Well, Onut, with the work Vim, was exhibited. It was a physical installation in the last year's Revoluciones. It was amazing, and we thought that would be very useful to have it as part of this digital exhibition. Onut's work is the type of work that we would like to see at universities or in public spaces, because again, I think it's very important to know how cyberstalking, how doxing or hate speech in the media, in Twitter, in social media, or revenge porn, for example, is being normalized, completely normalized, and is not okay. We need a strong law that punish porn revenge, that punish violence in social media, because it can be intimidating and it can be damaging for women's self-esteem, and especially for young women, for young people in general, that they spend most of the time in internet. So I think it's important. Anyways, I encourage you to visit Onut, and I'm gonna rush to the next artist, Sam, introduced by Ankita.
Yes, hello again. So yeah, I'd like to introduce Sam, who is an artist working across video, installation, assemblage, and more. And particularly, she works with repurposed imagery to create new narratives and new meanings. So Sam, are you here today?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, yeah, would you like to come and say a bit more?
Sure. So essentially, my body of work, in so few words, speaks to sort of the violence of representation enacted by the mass media in its sort of semiotic reinforcement of gender norms, sexuality, and beauty standards. Like body dysmorphia and low self-esteem, I argue, like, are symptoms of the state of a spectacle, which sort of objectifies and commodifies the female body. which historically has been the site where cultural and social perversions have been historically inscribed. So I guess, yeah, essentially the work is how hinging a woman's worth on her waistline is what drives consumerism. And nah, that's about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really interested in your work. And of course, you are also leading a workshop on the 14th of April. So yeah, everyone, please sign up for that. And Sam is also going to be doing a takeover with us in a couple of weeks to speak more about her work and also about the workshop. So thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I'm a fan of your work. I really love with your collage, with your work, with representation. Yes, I studied history of art, and I think what you do for women is so powerful. You're changing the narrative, and it's very powerful. It is possible to change the visual narrative, and yeah. So thank you very much for your work. It's amazing. And unfortunately, I mean, if like I invite people to go to your website because it's the most amazing positive thing that that cheered you up after this exhibition. So I'm really looking forward to go to your workshop. And the last artist joined us very last minute. Sandra is part of the team of Lon-art. So she presented this work, distillation, filtration, and installation, which is part of a big project that is called Kalima. And basically, well, Sandra is from Barcelona, and she's talking about the women working during the Industrial Revolution, the work. And the work, the body work is dust, the dust that they needed to collect in order to make the pigments, but also the dust that they encounter at home. So how women, they are surrounded by dust in their place of work, but also at home, how they need to work at the places like the like, you know, the industrial businesses, but also at home. I think it's beautiful, it's very powerful, like it mixes a lot of concepts related to women, to women's work, but also women's personal spaces. And I think it's very interesting if you have the opportunity to go and read more profoundly and to visit her work. I really recommend Sandra's work. So that's it from us. So we're gonna close up because I guess everybody needs to go, and everybody, like many people left already the conversation. So we are going to be very quick. In closing, thank you very much to all these artists that participated, that took part on this exhibition. We really appreciate, and we encourage the public, the participants today, to follow to follow them on their social media and on their workshops. So Bisila will close the exhibition. So Bisila.
I'm here. Well, as Maria just said, thank you everyone for staying, and I know we are super over time, so I'm gonna go as quick as possible. First, we have, as always, as been doing since 2019, we have an award for artists, and it's not in the spirit of competition, but more is like another way that we have found in order to keep supporting artists, because with the very little resources that we have, we try to expand as much as possible. So on the website, you will have a page where you can vote for your favorite artwork. And then this time we will have 2 winners, which is new. The first one will win £300 and the second one 200. And we can do this time because the project is funded by the Arts Council. So I invite you to vote. Then also we, as Ankita has really mentioned, we have more events coming up. We have a workshop and then 3 panel talks coming in April and May. And we don't have the events up yet because we're just finalizing details. You have on the homepage, you have the plan, the program. And then if you subscribe to our newsletter, if you haven't done it yet, then you will receive an update. So if you want to join, I will invite you to subscribe so that you don't miss any of the events. And what else? We also have a shop, which I guess you would have imagined, because some of the hours are for sale. But this shop also is very special this time because not only we have some of the pieces that you have seen tonight, but also some of our artists are open for commission. So if you are interested in working with them, you can send a message via the website and we will hook you up with the artist in question. And then also, another way of supporting the cause is by donating to charities that are there doing the hard work. So we have compiled like a short list of charities that we like, that we support. And if you are interested in what they're doing, you can donate to those charities. And the very, very last thing is that we're going to share now on the chat a survey. And this is will take you like 2 minutes to fill it. And for us, it will be really helpful because all of the projects that we run are funded by public funds or either by ourselves or by donations. So having feedback from the people that come and engage with the art is super important so that then we can go to potential art councils or whoever it is with reasons why what we do is needed, and the people that can help us with that is actually you. So I would invite you to do it if you don't mind doing it in like a couple of minutes. We will send it tomorrow as well. And that's it. So the very last thing will be, again, thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. Thank you to Anna and Lara for joining at the beginning. Thank you to all of the artists. Thank you to all the team also, because this exhibition now, I mean, I think is next level. Is so beautiful, and I hope you agree with me. And we've put it up in like a very short period of time. So amazing job there. And we hope we will see you in future events. And if you have any feedback, any questions, please get in touch. We're open. And I think that's it. I think we are ready to go.
Have a lovely night, everybody, and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Everyone,
Bye.
thank you so much. Bye.
Ni una menos, 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 ni una menos.